But Lord, it is unfair. This was my reaction when I read the parable of the laborers in the vineyard in Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 to 16. To summarize, Jesus tells a story about a landowner who hires workers for his vineyard at different times of the day. The landowner went out early in the morning and found laborers to work on his vineyard, and they came to an agreement of 1 denarius for their day's work. At 9 a.m., he found another batch of laborers who agreed with that 1 denarius wage. This went on, and he found laborers at 12 noon, 3 p.m., and finally at 5 p.m. Only this time, there was no agreement, and the landowner simply promised them that he would give them what was right. Come evening, when it was time to give the laborers their wages, the landowner called the last batch of laborers and gave them their wages first. He gave each of them a denarius. Upon hearing this, the first batch of laborers thought that they would receive more because they worked more hours and they bore the brunt of the work, only to be dismayed that they were also given each a denarius as per agreement. Unfair, right? Or is it? This parable perfectly encapsulates law and grace. The law came first, and the first batch of workers got what they worked for. They were treated according to the law based on the agreement between the workers and the landowner, and they wind up with backbreaking work under the intense heat of the sun. But grace came, and the next batch of workers were not given what's lawful. They were treated according to the landowner's goodness and not their works. And the last batch of workers received grace upon grace. Not only were they given the money they did not work for, but they also received it before the first batch of workers. Romans chapter 4 and 11 puts it this way: Now to him who works, the wages are not counted as grace, but as his due. And if it is by grace, then it is no longer by works. Otherwise, grace would no longer be grace. Simply put, the first batch was treated based on their works, while the next batches were treated based on the landowner's grace. Unfair? I don't think so. After all, what's stopping the first batch of workers to come back the next day and ask the landowner to treat them according to his grace? And more importantly, what's stopping you? After all, the one who gave this parable is the master who also said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Not one instance in the Gospels has Jesus turned down anyone who asks for his grace. Ask and you shall receive. He is so full of grace, and of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. Follow or subscribe to hear messages of grace every day.